I was your atypical C student.
And it was like, oh, I got a leadership position. I just fell into it because you was good at your job. You got a leadership position.
I really did not care. I loved it. I loved the money. I loved the fact that I was earning money. I
get a ton of pleasure from seeing people get their goals.
And I used those things and I used that experience I got from helping people.
Jaw-dropping moment.
Video came on and said, you're ready. You're ready. Because you're never really ready.
It's why we do this podcast now.
Just working the odd hours.
Say that you were loving it.
You can mention the name.
I worked at McDonald's.
InspirationNation, hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast with my very good friend Jose Noya and that other guy that always turns up, Ryan Boniface. How are we doing, guys?
Nothing without me.
Good.
So I like fight the abuse, Ryan. Fight the abuse. I'm very good, thanks. Very good. I am COVID-free now because I'm double vaccinated. That's how it works, right?
Yeah. No.
So it was a few hours ago. So if I wane halfway through, it's because I got a bit groggy from my symptoms. But I'm very good. Thank you.
How's the arm?
Oh, yeah, how's the arm? Ryan's asking, how's the arm?
It's all right. Don't feel anything. So I might get away with it. For those watching on YouTube, I'm doing some weird flappy motion with my arms. Makes it all look good. Right. Enough of this nonsense. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Tuning in. My God. Podcast services, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you are, social media, at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN, opening blurb complete. Right, so guys, what are we talking about this week?
Here's silence. Just the room. Just going to be happening.
Oh, you're just going to blank me. Right, it's my week this week on the Wheel of Conversation.
There we go. There it is.
So I'm going to start off with a long, cold open and tell you guys a story. And there's probably snippets of this all the way through the podcast. But I, myself, Mr. Kemp, when I was a young'un at school, I was a moderate achiever, I'll say to myself generously. I was your atypical C student. I was very lazy when it came to revising and coursework and homework and generally anything school related. I got a miraculous line of straight C's throughout my GCSEs, as they were called in the day. Might still be that now. No idea what I wanted to do. Went up to college, thought I wanted to go into law, got accepted into university for law, but decided I didn't really want to do law. Worked in a hotel for a bit. Decided I needed to either go to college or get a job that had qualifications in it without really knowing what that meant. And I went for a job at an accountancy firm. And I absolutely bombed it because I had no idea what it meant to be an accountant or what the exams were or what you needed to do or really even what the job involved. Then saw an advert for a company within an industry that we all work, that me and Joe know very, very well, that said they give you qualifications. And I thought, there we go, I'm going to go for that. Learned that I need to do a bit of research. So did a bit of research, went in, got the job. I will say I aced it, but I think they were taking on a lot of people at the time. So I'd thank my blessings there. And kind of bumbled along for the next however many years. But the assistance at the insistence, quite rightly, of my partner at the time, a job came up somewhere else that looked like a really good opportunity that kind of came my way for other people talking about it. Applied for that, went for that, bumbled along there. I then went on a course when I was about leadership. So I was a team leader at the time. I've talked on this before. I was an atrocious team leader. Didn't really know what I was doing. Can see now, looking at it, all the mistakes I made, but I just plonked in the job, no idea what I was doing. And I went on this course, which is an introduction to leadership, just three 1-hour courses, and it blew my mind. Like this whole concept of leadership as a skill, like jaw-dropping moment. And what you do and behavioural styles and how you influence people and why people act like they act and how you build a culture, and just completely, I was like, I left that room a different person. I went into it after the first session and completely changed the view of my managers after I left that session as well. And that was it. I was on the path to leadership, really dove into it, got quite being in as half things I luck, right place at right time, but then applying myself, got a number of promotions, got involved in a lot of stuff, really, really, really grew my skill set. We talk about this all the time, not just on here. The reason we're doing this, Joe, is because we used to talk about it endlessly outside of work, behavioural style books on my bookshelf like that. That's me. That's what Lee is. And then there was a second thing that I was at it was a work social thing. So it was at a races thing, like horse racing thing. And we had a table in the area where you have food and drink and stuff like that. And there were a couple of people kind of the other end of their career to me. One was the CEO of a big company, and the other had just sold his company and was kind of consulting and stuff like that. And they were talking about what they're doing and where they were. And there was, again, it was like a switch flicked in my head. And I was like, I want to be there. I'd already felt like I'd taken control. I knew where I wanted to be. I knew what I wanted, but it was like a whole new level clicked in. And that's where I was like, right, I'm going to learn new things. I'm going to push myself. I absolutely can get to that multiple levels above where I am now and what I'm doing and my legacy and my achievement, and just threw myself into learning things, trying to do it. It's why we do this podcast now. I don't think I would ever even have suggested it to you, Joe, if I wasn't in that mindset. It's why I ended up doing the other podcasts that we don't like to mention. Short little series, if anyone wants to look for Black Phoenix Financial Podcast, 14 episodes of gold out there on YouTube and podcast players. I started to teach myself day trading. Multiple, as you guys know, I have various little projects and stuff going all the time, and it's because of this extra level of mentality. And I think that is now, for what we talk about, if I was to identify who I am, those aspects of my personality are who I am to a core. That first event that I had didn't happen until I was 30. So all the way up until the age of 30, I was just kind of bumbling along. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I don't even think I thought I could do more than get a job and see how much you can squeeze out of it by working hard and doing overtime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then that first session really showed me that there's more to work than just going in and getting a salary. You can really make it something to be proud of. And that second light bulb moment was what really showed me that it's more than that. It's not just the job, it's everything you can do around that, and how you influence the people around that, and what you can build, and how much you can learn and develop and teach yourself. But there's a huge portion of my life where that wasn't who I was. There was aspects of it. Obviously, Joe, you knew me when I was a lot younger, and I think we said you saw bits of that there, but I definitely hadn't harnessed it, and I definitely in my mind didn't know what I wanted to be. When you're a lot younger, even younger than young Grifter there, everything's about, right, what do you want to do? What career do you want? What do you want to be? Talk to your kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? And actually, there's a lot of people who don't know what that is. And I think feel like they have to choose something, or they have to decide something, or they have to go down a path before they really know what it is, because we define there's a timescale. But I think everyone does these things at their own pace. Next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, one of these real pivotal crystal moments that I can really see as a change might happen again. And I'll be like, God, I can't believe I went 50 years without this being a big part of my personality. So it's always there and it's always changing. So under the guise of inspiration, which is what we are, I kind of want to reassure people who haven't quite found what that thing yet, who have found it, who are going with it, that there might be more, but really to reassure people that it's okay not to know. And different things happen at different times for people, but it's about keeping your eyes open and applying things and being open to learning and stuff. Which brings me to the subject of this week's title show, which is called When Did You Know? So Joe, what are your moments? When did you stop being old Joe? When did you become Inspiration Nation Joe? And how many iterations of that have there been along the path?
So, bit like you, left school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I said to you before, I'm sure I said on the podcast before, that I was just wanting to leave school and have a desk job with a computer and a keyboard. I had a job.
Computers hadn't yet been invented, so that was quite visionary, Joe.
Well, they were being invented just about then, as you say. Yeah, and as I say, they twined them up and everything. It was incredible. But yeah, I went to my first job before that was like a clothes store. I hated that. I jacked it in. I actually left. I didn't tell that before, actually. I just left it. It was a store called Quality Seconds, and I just...
Oh, I think I was going to say I've never heard this before, but I'm sure we talked about Quality Seconds before. That's where all my socks came from when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I just up and left. I could not read, like, clothes stores and me just do not mix. I knew that. Anyway, cut a long story short, I think one of them was like doing like you did a little bit, working that job, just didn't work my way up. And then it was like, oh, I got a leadership position. I just fell into it because you was good at your job. You got a leadership position. And ever since I had that leadership position, I did some ILM stuff, Institute Leadership Manager stuff, which I still got now. I said, I really quite like this leadership stuff. I like it. Anyway, cut a long story short, again, moving on from that, I did a lot of that, got into coaching, so got depressed, and I got into coaching, of course. Going on from that, then I was on and off with the coaching, on and off, not being consistent, not being persistent. And the thing that changed it was discovering Evan Carmichael content, because I was on off with this dream to do this content that would inspire. That not really, I didn't know it was inspiration at that point. It was more around just helping people. How do people get to there? Because I really love seeing people win. I love seeing people exceed. I love seeing people get their promotions. I really get a lot of pleasure from that. I get a ton of pleasure from seeing people get their goals. And when I saw the coaching, when I went to free coaching, I loved that. But the next iteration, I was seeing Evan Carmichael's thing, and I said, I always had this belief that how can I be a coach? I'm not a coach. It was I wasn't identifying myself as a coach. And I had to tell myself, I'm a coach, I'm a leader. And I had to identify that I'm a coach in that area. And then the video came on saying, you're ready, because you're never really ready. And that's what started it. And then I bought the book, which I've, actually the book that I've sent to Lee about how I discovered my core principle. It actually is the earlier book called Your One Word. And ever since the exercises, and then I recognized that my core principle is inspiration. And this was only 3 years ago, right, Lee? And I started doing those 1-minute videos.
Yes.
And that's the iteration. So it's from coaching now through to inspiring through content. That's where I now sit. And that's where I've been sitting now for the last 3 years with the blog and everything. So that's where I sit. So that's my change. So now it's like bringing inspiration to the world, leaving legacy. So now there's a lot of content out there people can watch. If I pop my clogs, there's still going to be loads of stuff here that we're doing. And that's what I want to do. I want to leave there a trail of stuff where people can go and watch and feel inspired and know, like you said, Lee, that you don't really know until you start trying things and trying things out. And like, I didn't know I was going to like the content creation, but I love creating content. That's what I've discovered doing posts. I absolutely love it. And then
you said that was just 3 years ago. And it's not, don't get wrong, it's not like you've wasted your life until that time. You've worked, you've done lots of good things, got your house, your family, everything else. But it's just that kind of purpose and who you are. And it can come along at any point and it can evolve and it can change.
I think the thing was discovering actually where my biggest pain was. That was the thing for my depression. And that's what sparked that whole thing about inspiration. And what I really hate and what I really love, and the commonalities between those things. And inspiration is always something that I looked at. I always looked, even when I was like working where you work now, I was looking for inspirational figures, and I wasn't really thinking that I like inspiration. I just wanted to find someone who I could like, oh, they're great. And so I've always looked for that, and I didn't recognize that until I did that work. And obviously you're ready. So self-identification about you're ready and who you want to be, what you want to become. And that's where it led to. So it's a whole, and I'm now, older than you, a lot older. So it's never,
Joe, to be fair, that's always been the case.
It has.
But like you said, it's just, it comes along at different times and in different stages. And again, that's that kind of, for people who've got a passion or got a dream or look at things and think, I wish I could do that, is you absolutely can. And it's one little step at a time, lots of consistency, that stuff that we do. Very quick, you remind me something there, if you don't mind me saying, a quick peek behind the curtain backstage on the show. So me and Joe were having a chat about something, and Joe recommended that doing this exercise in the Evan Carmichael book would be a really good idea. And Joe said, oh, that's good. What I'll do is, there's just a few pages from the book. What I'll do in a minute, I'll take some screenshots and I'll send them to you. And I was like, oh, that's really nice, Joe. Thank you. And then I walked, like, the shops are like 10 minutes up the road from me here. So got my shoes on, went out, I was walking out the shop and my phone went ping. And then it went ping. And then it went ping. And then it went ping, 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 ping. And Joe had sent me 57 pages from this book that he'd taken photos of it, which I said was a really, really nice thing to do. I just love, like you said, you hadn't quite realised how many pages it was. And I just think the gravity of it being 57 pages is brilliant. That's more WhatsApp than I normally get in a week. And I got them in like 10 minutes.
You know what? You don't recognise what the work you did. And you know, I didn't think it was that long, but like it is that long. But anyway, yeah.
So that was good fun. Very quickly as well, before we move on, I just want to give a quick shout out. I say shout out to ourselves. Head over to inspirationnation.org.uk if you're a fan of the show, if you like what we're doing. Find details of the coaching service there. You can get some good one-on-one coaching, free 20-minute consultation. Sign up to the newsletter. Just click on the blog tab. And of course, there's the Inspiration Nation store. Head over for all your fantastic Inspiration Nation merch. Very quickly, we've got mugshot for the screen. Mugshot. Joe's dragging behind, but we got it there. Joe's modeling Inspiration Nation t-shirt. It's far too hot for me to wear one of my hoodies, but here they are. Wonderful IN logo on the front. Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation on the back. I always take you with me, Joe. Love having your name with me.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Head over there, support the show, keeps us doing what we're doing. Really appreciate it. And there we go, face mask as well that Joe's holding up. I think mine's here somewhere as well. Right, so Ryan, I'd just be interesting because you are younger than I was when I even had my first epiphany. Or we've referenced before that you're a lot further down the line than I was at the age where you are now, certainly in terms of career focus and what you're doing and stuff. But what's your perspective on kind of moments that have made you where you are, or actually aspirational things you might see for you down the line?
So I was always a bit of an overachiever at school, if we're going to go back down this path.
Nerd.
But my exam results didn't show that, because I knew I was an overachiever, so I never tried. So I never revised, never did anything like that. I was too smart for my own good, you could argue, in the sense that I just didn't, why do I need to revise? If I know it. So I came out with some A's, some B's, and some C's, etc. Could have and probably should have achieved a lot better. But don't get me wrong, they're still very good results. I went off to sixth form, which I don't know if that existed when you two were of that age, but it's the equivalent of college. But I did it at my secondary school. They just provided an A-level service at the time, or a GCE service for you, Joe. I think that would have been at your time.
GCEs. Oh, what do you mean CSEs, you mean?
If you, yeah, sure. So, but ever since I was little, my only aspiration was to work in the city. I wanted to work somewhere where I had to wear a suit, maybe a tie, and that could have been anything. It could have been a lawyer. It could have been a bin man. But if, I wanted to work in London in a suit doing business stuff. And so for my GCSEs and my A-levels, I studied business management and business studies. Did well in both of those. And then I reached, I got to about 14 years old and got a part-time cash in hand job washing up plates in a cafe. Made my first bit of money. Only ever spent it on clothes, really. And that was that. And then at 16, I finished my GCSEs and I was starting to go to sixth form. And I said, well, I can't really do this dishwashing job anymore because I don't know how intense sixth form's going to be. The answer is it wasn't that intense. So I ended up getting a part-time job at a fast food restaurant. Just working the odd hours.
To say that you were loving it.
You can mention the name, because
I worked at McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's from when I was 16 up until I was 21. But started off part-time because I was at sixth form, worked the odd evening, the odd weekend day. And at that age, I loved the money. Like, it was amazing to me. There were some days where I would finish school at 3. I'd get my dad to drop me off at McDonald's for 4, and I would work 4 till midnight, and I would come home. I'd go to bed, get up at 8 o'clock, I'd go to school, and I'd rinse and repeat 7 days a week. entirely illegal, because I was 16, 17, and you can't work that many hours at that age or at that time at that age. But I didn't care. I really did not care. I loved it. I loved the money. I loved the fact that I was earning money. I loved the fact that I, was making friends. And that was great. Got promoted. Well, I had to work really hard to get my first promotion. I became what they call a crew trainer, which is when you get all your stars, get a fancy pay rise, and essentially your job is to train people that are new, basically, and in new areas of the restaurant and things like that. Did that for about 6 months, and I was like, cool, I'm done. What's next? And it was shift management, which is essentially it's a supervisor role, team leader role, first level of leadership in that kind of area. That involved a 3-day course in London, a lot of theoretical textbook work, which I put time in for. I made some friends with people that were team leaders over the time that I'd worked there, learnt from them, bounced off of them, and kind of established a path. And then I got promoted at, I must have been 18 years, just turned 18. I was the youngest shift manager at the time in the country, I think.
Wow.
And then I did that for about 2 years, I think, trying to work out the dates, 2 years or so. And then I decided, our store ended up going 24 hours. And that meant at that point that people had to work overnight. And being a young 18-year-old, I had no responsibilities. So a lot of the time I was lumbered with those 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. shifts. And don't get me wrong, I managed them. I did okay, but it absolutely crucifies a social life, and it mentally fatigues you. Like it writes you off. And at this point, to stress, I know nothing about what I want to do. I'm just getting up, going to work, earning money, finishing. Getting up, going to work, earning money, finishing. Spending that money at weekends or whenever I get paid, clothes. At 18, so I was starting to go out, cars, whatever. And then one day I woke up and I was like, I'm done with working overnights. And I had a friend outside of McDonald's that worked at a insurance company. They worked in a sales and customer service representative role. And they were like, look, we actually get a salary here. You're not hourly paid. You get good benefits. It's not a bad company to work for. Come get involved. I was like, fine, I'll apply. I applied for 3 roles. I applied for a customer service and sales representative role, which is what my friend did. I applied for a claims handler role, and I applied for an admin role, I think. I had absolutely no idea what sector this business was in. I had no idea what they did. I have no idea how it works. The only thing I knew about insurance, because that's what it is, was that you needed it to legally have to drive a car. Knew nothing. Went to the interview, got the job. Turns out the person that actually interviewed me was like a pretty big cheese. Bless her. Still got on with her really well to this day. And she really liked me for whatever reason. Gave me a job. And I got a job in a training pod team, of which I was situated for about 6 months. And during this time, the company I originally worked for was taken over. Well, they were taken over a few months prior, but as there are with takeovers, these things take time. And eventually one of the podcast co-hosts kind of got involved and started to change the department. As far as I know, because at that time I just came in, did a job in a trainee team. And then one day I sat down with my now boss, and she was like, there are 8 of you on this team. 2 of you are going to one team, 6 of you are going to another. And for whatever reason, I got picked as one of the 2 to go to a different team. There was no rhyme or reason as to why I was picked, as far as I'm aware. I was picked up, moved, put down. And I was put in a team that needed more experience, did a different job, essentially. And you needed to know a lot about the world of insurance and things like that. So I spent the first 3-4 months learning. And I started building a rapport with my team leader at the time. And turned out that we had a hell of a lot in common. We are, I think, quite similar in person as people. Share a lot of different traits. Share a lot of the same traits. Have a lot of the same characteristics. quite the same personality wise in a lot of aspects, in the ones that kind of not matter, but the ones that are more recognizable. Built up my training, built up this. I got lucky. I got extra training to deal with more expensive and complicated claims, as we did in that department. Just did my job, started working overtime, blah, blah, blah. The following year, actually, no, I'll go back. As part of that team, the team that I got moved into, it was the first bleeding in of a team in that area of the business that had come from the takeover. And as part of that, my team leader's boss and their boss, who is consequently Lee, came in to our site quite often to kind of change the way it worked and just kind of doing their job, basically. And I remember being told that you were coming in one day and that you were you're an important guy, and we can't mess about.
Little did you know how untrue that was, Robin.
Yeah, we can't mess about. Have to be completely mature, whatever. And I remember being really scared of the pair of you. But I'm also all about
the matures, me.
I also remember sitting there thinking, I want to be there. I want to do that. No idea how to get there, but I want to do that. So as time went on, a few months later, Lee actually had a project that came up, and he wanted to do something called vlogs. I put my hand up because I knew videography from just hobbies and things like that. Got involved, and I think it's fair to say we hit it off quite well. We kind of had good ideas with each other, bounced things off well from each other. And I put in what I would like to think the extra mile. I took some days holiday that I worked through to get some stuff done. And that was the first time I remember that you called me and said, I'm going to give you those days holiday back as a thank you. And I was like, you don't have to do that. And you was like, it's the least I can do. And ever since then, every project that's come up that I knew even an inkling about, I got involved in. And as a result of that, I eventually applied for a leadership program that kind of go to our company's top 1% of performers at entry-level jobs. And I got on that course. And I'm trying to speed up because we're running out of time, but the only thing in my mind at the time was that I wanted to be in the position that Lee and the person in between, or the other person that I mentioned in their role. And I remember going to a Christmas party because that was the day I found out, and I actually had a conversation with the other person, and she said to me, what do you want to do? And I was like, if I'm completely honest with you, I want to do your job. I want to be where you are. And she laughed, not at me, but she kind of chuckled and went, fair enough. I knew nothing about how to get there. I know nothing about how to do. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do my team leader's job. I'd have no idea how to do that person's job, or even further so how to do Lee's job. But I have to start somewhere, and that was my first kind of epiphany point, from the fact that I got on really well with my team leader and we bonded, and he pushed me to getting on to that course, that 6-month period, and then doing those projects. That was things, and Lee spoke about luck as well, but those things just fell into place at the exact right time, and I just excelled through all of it. Did the course, applied for some team leader positions whilst doing the course, was unsuccessful. Learned. Took me a while to learn, but I learned why I didn't get the role. And I used my biggest tool to my advantage, which was being able to know things that other people don't. Whether that's a technical thing, whether that's an operational thing, whether that's a hypothetical thing. I found things out, and I learned things that other people didn't. And that made me, in my mind's eye, in my role, almost invaluable. And I used those things, and I used that experience I got from helping people and developing people under that, from the course I did and from the things I learned, to my advantage. And I now sit in a leadership position. So, I mean, you could argue that the 3 people that were above me from my handling role when I first started are the 3 reasons where I am now. But to me, and it might be me being me, but I still think that I'm lucky, that I'm so lucky that people ask me a question, and if I know the answer, I know it. And if I don't know the answer, then I don't guess, but I used a guesstimation for a lot of it. And it just seems pretty much every time that it comes up my way. And that might be, the guesstimation might be me selling myself short, and it's a case that I do know these things and I'm just subconsciously talking myself out of it. But yeah, that's pretty much my life story in terms of employment and stuff.
I like it, and I like you said, and it's a similarity with all three of us, and it's part of the key message I wanted for this show, is sometimes you don't know what it is that you want to do. And I'm not talking just what is your day-to-day job, but what are those aspects that make up you and who you are and what gravitate you to. And sometimes you don't know what they are until they come along. And what I like with that, and it's the message isn't, well, don't worry because it will happen eventually, because you have to work hard at those things once you do find what they are. It's just that you might not know them all by the time you're 18. You might not know them all by the 30. You might not even know them by the time you're 50, but they will be there. But what you did, and I'll do the same, I will put mine down to a lot to luck and stuff. But it's something you talked about that's the same with me. So I started working when I was 15, and it was the same. I'd get home from school, I'd have dinner, then I'd go and do an evening shift where I was doing work all the way through college. And it was just, whatever it was, there's a work ethic that sat behind what I was doing. So when opportunities came along, I'd apply myself to them. And it's the same with you, Ryan, is all these things, like you said, there's, the who you're initially working for in the business and the stuff you learned from them in the rapport, and that conversation over dinner about where do you want to go and those steps up, and the projects we've done together. I don't think they fell into place at the right time. I just think that when those opportunities came along, you applied yourself. And if those opportunities didn't come along, other ones would have, but you, a bit like we talked about earlier, you gave it a go, you jumped in, you gave it your all. And then once you found something you gravitated to, you really put a lot of effort into it. So we don't have a lot of control over the chances that come our way, but the harder you work at them and the more open you are to opportunities, the more chance, I suppose, you create of them coming along.
Yeah, I don't think when I was 16 working 8-hour days after school that I put it down to a work ethic. I put it down to the rewards I was getting out the back of it.
Exactly the same for me, 100%.
But I think doing those things developed that work ethic. It developed that almost common sense in me to say, well, I enjoy doing this, so why don't I just do it more? And it's outside of the money reason that you do, outside of the financial, reimbursement you get for it. It's about what it gives you. And don't get me wrong, I'm not protesting that the sector I work in is what I'll live and breathe until the day I die. But it is something that I'm passionate about, something that I'm good at. So that's something that I think for all three of us is something that we kind of push home, and it gives us another reason outside of having to pay the bills to kind of get out of bed.
Absolutely. Purpose is important. And if you haven't found yours yet, or you know what it is, or it things like it's out of your reach, the message is just, keep going. That's
Baby
basically
steps.
The theme of today. Right. The counter is saying we've got less than 2 minutes. So very quickly, thank you everyone for listening. Social media, @IN, Jose Noya-Inspiration. Check him out. You know all the other jazz. We say it on every other show. Joe, what do you want to wrap us up with?
Biggest takeaways.
So I'm going to say work ethic, and it wasn't what I was expecting to come out of today with, but that is what I'm going with.
Right.
Taking baby steps to achieve your goals. They may seem like, well, that is the headline, but they may seem miles away, but they're only they're only 10,000 steps. They're only 100 steps. You just have to take the first one.
Mine's luck is a skill. I don't know how it's going to quickly end.
I like it. Luck is a skill. 100%.
Okay,
Thank you. Right. I will count us down. We'll be back again next week, everyone. We appreciate you all out there. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys
later.
So I want to know now, what's your biggest takeaway? Don't forget to hashtag it with Inspiration Nation in the comments below, and make sure you commit to action. So you can catch all our other Inspiration Nation podcast episodes right over here. So go check them out. And also, don't forget to subscribe, because that will tell you when your next video goes live by you hitting that amazing bell. So until next time, it's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you right over there.